You know, when I started this channel, I just spent hours and hours watching all these really cool photography YouTubers, and I'm like, they've got it made. People just send them free stuff every week for them to try out and show you guys. And I think that's pretty cool. Well, consider me cool because somebody sent me something. It is the Z6 mirrorless camera from Nikon. And there it is. This is the future, or maybe the present, of photography right here. Now, if you follow photography at all, you know that there's this whole debate on DSLR versus mirrorless, and we're kind of going through this transition right now. I've been late to the party on mirrorless, admittedly. I don't want to be one of those like old school photographers who like resists all change or resists when anything new comes out. Like, I feel like that's when you kind of get yourself into trouble. And so what I'm going to do is shoot one Red Sox game with this Z6, and I'm going to shoot the second game with the D5 DSLR, and I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to talk to you guys about the differences, the similarities, what I see, the benefits of each being. Now, before we get any further, I got to shout out my guys at Hunt's Photo and Video, and I'll tell you why. They sent me this camera to try out. Now, for those of you guys who are in the New England area, or really anywhere, I really suggest you check out Hunt's Photo and Video. Here at the Red Sox, we've been working with Hunt's as long as I've been here, at least 10 years, if not longer. Everything we need, we go to Hunt's for, and they are, I'm telling you, top notch. They give great, friendly, helpful advice, honest advice for any level that you're at, whether you're a beginner starting out in photography or someone who's a working professional. Yes, I'm a professional photographer. Yes, I'm out there shooting every single day, but by no means am I an authority or an expert when it comes to the gear on a technical level. But for you guys, I did want to bring somebody in who truly is an expert, who can talk about this DSLR versus mirrorless debate on a technical level and really give you all the information you need. So we are going to zoom right into a Zoom call with Noah Buchanan, who is the outside sales developer for specialty markets for Hunt's Photo and Video here in Boston. Noah, thank you so much for joining me, bro. And hey, thanks for the Z.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to be here. Glad you're enjoying it.
From a technical standpoint, like, can you kind of give us just like a general overview of the difference between DSLR and mirrorless?
Really, the biggest differences are you're eliminating that mirror box that you have in your DSLR, which makes the camera smaller, lighter, allows for a greater choice in lens design, lens selection, making smaller lenses, faster lenses. Just from when film went to digital, we're seeing a similar shift from DSLR to mirrorless. So as time goes on, I'm seeing more and more photographers actually make the switch over to mirrorless or incorporate it with their DSLR system, which is another nice benefit that you get if you're a Nikon or Canon shooter. You can still use your lenses on the new system and be able to use them simultaneously.
It seems like the ergonomics and just the overall size and weight is a huge difference between the DSLR and the mirrorless.
Most of these cameras are going to be smaller and more compact, so they're going to be a little bit less uncomfortable than your DSLR, especially for shooting something like a D5 or a Canon 1DX series camera that have this massive grip. They're just really comfortable in the hand. You do lose that a little bit, but what you gain is the weight savings and the size savings, so you don't have to carry around as much gear with you or lug it around on your back if you're carrying it in a backpack and going out shooting for the day.
When it comes to autofocus, it seems like there's a couple features or a couple things to point out about the new mirrorless system that you could maybe talk about.
So there's a lot more focus points that you have on the mirrorless systems, and those are going to cover pretty much edge to edge on the sensor. So no matter where your subject is in the frame, you're most likely going to have an autofocus point that you can put there. So you're not really doing a lot of focus and recomposing that you may have had to do with DSLRs. A lot of these cameras now have face detection, eye detection, even some of them have animal eye detection, which is just something we didn't have before with DSLRs, which is great for sports and wildlife shooters or even portrait photographers, wedding photographers.
Just like it was an adjustment from film to digital, it's probably an adjustment looking through the actual camera from DSLR to mirrorless, right?
Yeah, it definitely can be. I mean, the electronic viewfinder is a lot different than the optical viewfinder. You do gain a lot of things, so you can see more settings in the viewfinder now, so you can adjust settings quicker if you need to do that. You also get to see your exposure in real time. So whatever exposure you see through the viewfinder is what your final exposure is going to look like. So you don't have to do as much guessing when it comes to exposure and taking an image, reviewing it, checking the exposure, going back, adjusting your settings. You can do all that beforehand before you even take the first image.
And is it real that it's like totally silent? Like this is no joke. Like you can't hear it shooting?
Yeah, some of them are. There are some models where you can go into the electronic shutter mode, so you're not going to have any shutter noise at all. There's no mechanical shutter opening and closing, so you can shoot completely silently without any sound being made. And this is really great if you don't want to cause any distractions or draw any attention to yourself.
Are these ready to hang with the big boys, or are they still kind of making their way there?
I think some of them definitely are. I mean, Sony just signed a contract not too long ago with AP, where all of the AP photographers are using Sony cameras, both photo and video. So all of their press photographers are using Sony cameras now, and Sony only makes mirrorless cameras. I think the autofocus has gotten to a point where it is really good now, and it can keep up with a lot of these DSLRs are doing, and it's only going to continue to improve as time goes on. Many of them have in-body stabilization now, which gives you stabilization directly at the point of the sensor. So you can stabilize any lens you're using, whether it has image stabilization or not. So you can shoot at slower shutter speeds. You can hand hold shutter speeds at 1, 2, 3 seconds sometimes. With some of these cameras, you don't have to rack up your ISO and have as much noise in your images either, which is really nice. So that in-body stabilization really helps to compensate for some of that low light shooting.
What about battery life and battery performance?
Because these mirrorless cameras are a lot smaller, in turn you have a smaller battery. That battery that you have in the D5 is pretty massive, probably half the size of the Z6 camera itself, if we're being honest. So you do have a much smaller battery to kind of compensate for the smaller camera size. So you are going to have to replace batteries more often and just carry more batteries with you when you're going out shooting. I don't know of any mirrorless camera out there on the market that's going to directly compete with the battery life of the D5 or the D6 or even Canon's 1DX series or anything like that.
What are you seeing with your customers as far as their preferences for mirrorless cameras, and also just what do we need to know about hunts?
We're a New England-based photo and video retailer. We have 8 stores throughout New England. We are seeing a lot more people switch over to mirrorless as time goes on. Me personally, I'm selling more mirrorless cameras now than I'm selling DSLRs. By a decent amount, I would say. I'm not having as many people reach out to me looking to purchase DSLRs anymore. We're really seeing a huge switch over to mirrorless, and it's pretty even spread across the board as far as the systems go. I wouldn't say that one company is better than another. All these camera companies are producing amazing cameras and lenses, and there's certain cameras and lenses that are going to be better for some photographers and not as good for others. So it's really the right camera for you.
This is why you guys got to go to hunts. We've been using them for years here at the Red Sox. These guys know their stuff. Hey, Noah, thanks a lot. And we've got games all weekend, so we're going to head out and give this bad boy a spin.
Awesome. Enjoy it, Billy.
About 3 o'clock, time to get to work. The players are starting to arrive, so got to go start shooting. But first observations, I've got the Z right here. First observation, ergonomics are really good. Feels really good in the hand. You know, the grip is really nice. The buttons are all kind of just laid out exactly how I'm used to having them on all the Nikon DSLRs. And you know, my main observation here is just I've got it over my shoulder, and it just feels light, feels small. It feels kind of weightless. Like I'm used to carrying around this big tank of a DSLR, you know, really heavy. And this is a welcome difference. You know, I feel like I barely have anything over my shoulder. And so I think if I were to start using these every day, you know, I'd really save my back and really save my shoulders a lot of trouble. So we'll go look for some players, but gotta mask up. If you are a DSLR user and you have DSLR lenses, you can still use those lenses on the mirrorless system. You just need this little adapter here. Now, the adapter is super easy to put on, but just keep in mind it is another thing you have to buy. It is another thing you have to put on your rig. There's definitely a major difference between the mirrorless and the DSLR. The electronic viewfinder definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. It eliminates your need for like chimping, like taking a picture, checking the screen, making sure the exposure is good, adjusting the exposure, then taking another picture. You know, you kind of know exactly what you're getting when you shoot. question is always, how does it do in low light? And here under the overhang, there's a hitter's meeting happening right here, so I don't want to talk too loudly, but I will say it's having a harder time focusing here in the dark than the DSLR does. It's kind of having trouble locking on to certain objects because it's so dark in here. Focus in the low light was just not that good. I was locked onto it right here, and it just like didn't do it. And like only like one or two of these per sequence are like sharp. So here in the batting cage, about 10 minutes before the game, guys are warming up, getting ready, doing their thing. So I just turned the camera to silent shutter mode, which is, you know, the big draw, the mirrorless, and just tested it out. You literally can't hear a thing when you're shooting, not a single sound. I really think this is where the mirrorless shines. Like I can be in here shooting, doing my thing, getting the players getting ready, and I'm not making a sound. I'm just kind of a fly on the wall. Files look pretty good. I mean, they're definitely no worse than the DSLR. I don't know if they're any better, but they're about the same, which is good. That's what you want. Same when it comes to dynamic range, performance in low light situations, the noise, the grain, the amount of color you're able to pull, the highlights and shadows you're able to pull. It's about the same to me. It looks like it's all about the same. Great for carrying around features, wide angle stuff. So far I like it, but we're about 20 minutes out from game time. So we're about to really put it to the test. Back in the photo pick, game has started. Put the Z6 onto the 400-2.8. Whereas it felt good in my hand before with the wide angle, I feel like with the big 400, it just feels like it doesn't really have quite the weight as the D5, which is nice for sure, but it also just feels like a little top heavy now. Like it feels like the lens is dominating the camera a little bit. Oh boy, let's see how this goes. Woo! Wow. Amazing catch by Jackie. What else is new? So this is actually going to be a good test after that sequence. It did pretty good. It did pretty good, but you know, the 12 frames a second is its maximum, and in that instance, I really miss having the full 14 frames a second. I really want that ball dropping into his glove, and I think I would have had it with the DSLR. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're shooting sports, every single second counts. You know, in the DSLR, it's like you can go kind of to the edge, but you kind of still have to recompose your shot if you truly want your subject to be in the corner. Whereas this one, I mean, you can literally bring your focus point to the farthest corner of the frame. You can go on all four sides and you can do that. Now, another thing I'm noticing right off the bat here is I'm in the second inning. My battery is probably at about 60-65%. Now on the DSLR, I can go really 3 to 4 games without changing the battery. With this, you probably are going to be changing it out every 1 or 2 games. Honest with you, I just don't know if it's as fast. Focusing, tracking, locking on to the subject while they're moving really fast. When you really burst down on a sequence, like when you really just hold the shutter down for an extended sequence, an extended action sequence, it just feels like there's a lag when you really hammer down the shutter and you're trying to get a full-on action sequence of 20 or 30 photos in a row. All right, that about does it. So I had a lot of fun trying this little guy out. It was pretty cool. So we're gonna shut it down for the night. We'll start again tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll use the DSLR and we'll compare the two. We'll see how they compare and who takes the cake. But for now, sleepy time. Back at it for night 2. Tonight we've got the DSLR. This is what I'm used to. This is what I've been using for years. So I'm probably a little biased. But after last night, I gotta say, I'm impressed with that little mirrorless guy. Obviously gonna talk about the feel of the camera, especially after last night. It feels heavy. Feels like I've got a couple bricks tied to my shoulder, which is not great, not ideal, but again, what I'm used to. So the mirrorless is small, it's light, it's easy. These things are tanks, these are heavy. So I'm like walking up this flight of stairs right here, and I'm like kind of out of breath, but the view is good anyway. Going to the photo pit. Here we go. It is a machine gun. I mean, I can just fire away. And it doesn't miss anything. The focus is super fast, the frame rate's super fast. I mean, it's a machine gun. And the mirrorless isn't quite there yet as far as just overall quickness of it, responsiveness. I think this is maybe more of a mental thing, but although the silent shooting or the quiet shutter is pretty cool and obviously great for some situations, there is a peace of mind in a way that comes with it. Reaffirms that you're shooting, you're getting the frames you need. It is kind of annoying though, because like once I get right up in their grill and start shooting in the dugout here, they do get kind of weirded out. What you see right here is my normal setup for shooting action, for shooting baseball. So I have the 400mm, which is my long lens, good for action happening across the field. And then I have the 70-2 for the close-up action here. And I keep the 70-2 right around my neck here so that I can quickly switch from the long lens to the short lens if something happens. And I will say, after the course of the game, it starts to hurt. It kind of starts to wear in your neck and shoulders. And if the mirrorless does continue, that will alleviate, I think, a lot of this pressure and wear and tear on your body. That is life in the pit right there. Both give you a lot of dynamic range, a lot of sharpness, a lot of clarity. They really hold up well at the high ISOs. I'm not noticing a whole lot of difference in the actual file. It's more in the shooting, less in the actual product. All right, that's game over. Okay, so what's the final verdict? DSLR or mirrorless? Well, listen, mirrorless is definitely not going anywhere. It is here to stay, and it's pretty cool. There's some features about the mirrorless that I really love. I love the silent shooting. I love the digital viewfinder. I love the fact that these are small, they're lightweight, and they're compact. They're great for wide-angle stuff, sports features, behind-the-scenes moments, events and appearances, anything that isn't happening really fast. These will be really, really, really useful cameras for you. But here's the thing, I am not ready to make the switch entirely, and here's why. For the hardcore, down and dirty game action, they just still can't quite hang with the big boy DSLRs. Now, maybe this is a Nikon specific problem, but I just feel like the autofocus isn't quite there as far as tracking and locking on to fast moving subjects and really locking on to a fast-paced action sequence of events happening. And I also think the battery life is a major problem. I don't have time to be switching out batteries twice a game or once every game. It just doesn't really seem practical at this point in time. And I just don't know if they're solid enough to last for the rigors of an entire season shooting night after night after night. So if I'm a sports photographer, I'm definitely ready to buy mirrorless as my B camera. But if I'm looking for my A #1 camera, I'm still staying with the old faithful DSLR, at least for now. I know these mirrorless are getting better, and give it a couple years, I think we'll be all mirrorless. So that's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. I hope this comparison was helpful. A big thank you to Hunts for sending over the camera. I've got their contact information below in the description, both for the store and for Noah. You can reach out to him directly. And hey, if you like what you saw here, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. We're approaching 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate you guys checking in and following along on this journey. It's been fun. I'm gonna try and keep it rolling, but for now, I'm out of here. I'll see you next time.